you can turn off your cameras and if you'd like until the end. All right, thanks. I'm turning it over to you guys.
Okay. Well, thank you. And hello, everyone. My name is Catherine Sullivan DiCarlo. I have been with Chapel Haven Schleifer Center for 14 years. And we are delighted to be here tonight just to give you an overview of what life after high school can look like. And I just came back from 2 big transition fairs in the suburbs of Chicago, and I can tell you that it was 35 degrees and slightly snowing there. But there is never enough opportunity to talk with parents about what can happen in the post-secondary and transition years. And so that is what we always look for, and we really appreciate Thea and Summit Camp for allowing us to present. And we do get a lot of student applicants who have gone to Summit. Also, we used to get a lot of folks who went to Camp Northwood, which I know that Camp Northwood is kind of a kindred soul and shares some staff now with Summit Camp. So a young adult who's been away to summer camp and been able to manage that is always a good next step to come to a program like Chapel Haven. So as we go along, if you have a question, you may put it in the chat. And we'll keep looking down there. We really love your questions, and we encourage you, if you have one, to go ahead and ask. And as Thea mentioned, the session is being recorded. And so we will all have a link after today if we want to share this session. And so these are our wonderful panelists. I am Vice President of Admissions and Marketing. Christy is our Director of Admissions, and she previously was a certified special education teacher in our REACH program. And so she really knows our programs inside and out. And then we have the distinct pleasure of having 3 of our adults joining us who are currently enrolled at Chapel Haven. And they are Kimber Marchese, who is a graduate of our REACH program and now is a Chapel Haven community member. And we have Chase, who is just starting in our Asperger's Syndrome Adult Transition Program, and we're delighted to have her. And then we have Cheney, who is in his 2nd year in our Asperger's Syndrome Adult Transition. And you'll find as we go along that Chapel Haven is a nonprofit, nationally accredited, and we are also a lifelong community. So often what will happen is a family will look at Chapel Haven and they'll learn all about the ways in which we can help adults and emerging adults, such as Summit campers, learn how to live with independence. And so typically adults will come and live in one of our residential programs on campus, sometimes for 2 years, sometimes less, sometimes more, learning about what it takes to have an apartment, to manage a budget, to manage diet and grocery shopping and cooking and changing the light bulbs in the apartment and getting ready for college, getting ready for paid employment, and just generally learning how to be an adult, independent, and living away from mom and dad. And then once those adults have gone through our residential program, fully 85% of those adults choose to stay on and move into our lifelong community. So we are a school, and we're also a lifelong community. And that makes us just a little bit different than some of the other programs out there. You'll notice that we are celebrating our 50th year. There was a little logo bug down there at the corner. We were founded in 1972. So we've been in this field for a very long time and love what we do and feel very passionately about it. But nobody tells our story better than our own adults. And so we always leap at the chance to have them share with you how they came to Chapel Haven. So our first adult to present tonight will be Kimber. And she came to us from Darien, Connecticut. And she came right to Chapel Haven when she turned 18 from high school. But she can tell us a little bit. She had sleepaway camp experience. She says she was excited and curious. And she had gone to visit other schools and even fell asleep on one of her visitation days. So Kimber, tell us a little bit about you and your connection to Chapel Haven.
Hi, my name is Kimber. I am 28. I come from Darien, Connecticut. And I came straight to Chapel Haven from high school. My parents were the one who found it, and I was a little bit unsure at first because I really wasn't sure what I was going to do after high school. But when I arrived, I was very surprised by all the people. They wanted to come and help me move in, and I was a little bit scared, so I didn't want any help. So, but I really enjoy it here, and I love the community, and I yeah, I can't think of
So
anything.
Kimber, let me ask you, it looks like you had been to some sleepaway camps before you came to Chapel Haven. Can you talk briefly about that experience?
Yeah, I went to sleepaway camp, and it was, I went to many, but it was very scary, but also I would say it did help, because I went to camp and was away, so that was a little bit helpful, and I um I really liked camp. I made a lot of friends, and it was nice to be away and experience what it's like to kind of be by yourself.
So you went through the REACH program and you learned all about how to manage your life, your money, your day-to-day life skills, etc. So tell us what you're doing now.
I have my own apartment. I live alone. I have a pretty busy schedule. I work at UArts. It's the full name is Universal Arts, but we could go by UArts, and we make a lot of like projects and like stuff for Chapel Haven.
Part of which is the awesome Spirit Wear shirt that you're wearing tonight, right?
Yeah. Yeah, we make shirts, and we do jackets, and we screen print. Right now we are working, we're doing a lot of diamond paintings. It's gone like really crazy, and it's like Diamond Central at UArts. But it's fun. We listen to music. Heather brings her dog in. She is like the person who looks over UArts, and that's fun.
So one of the things about you is that you like to compete in pageants, right?
Yeah.
And tell us a little bit about that.
I started competing in pageants in 2010, mostly because I like to dress up, and wanted to dress up even more, and so I found pageants, and I have been doing really well, and they're really fun, and I've gained a lot of confidence, and I've met a lot of friends, and I must say it has helped with just like public speaking and like speaking to people, so that's a good thing. I'm also involved with Miss Amazing. It is a pageant for girls with disabilities, and I joined that in 2017. And I'm still a part of it. The next one isn't until March, but I still go to like all the events that they have and stuff, and I really enjoy it.
Thanks, Kimber.
Go.
Okay. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Just answering a question here.
I was going to say, I saw some questions were coming into the chat. I thought maybe once all our students had a chance to do their presentation, we could see if there were some that we wanted to answer out loud, if any were directed to the students.
Okay. And then our next speaker is Chase, who is from the Big Apple and is in her first year in our ASAT program. And ASAT is an acronym for Asperger's Syndrome Adult Transition Program, which is a program that we started in 2006. And Chase, do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself and how you came to pick Chapel Haven?
Yeah, so I didn't come out of high school. I originally was going to take one gap year out of high school, ended up taking 2. And then I lived with my parents for 2 years and then went to a program in Vermont for 3 years and then came here recently. So, but I did go to boarding school, so that did help kind of me knowing to be away from home and not like being homesick. Yeah.
And
Can you
Chase, I think
talk
I
more?
remember, and Chase, I think I remember you telling me too, that you had also done some sleepaway camp prior and felt like that was helpful in like getting used to being away from your family.
Yeah, I did a sleepaway camp once in Vermont, and then I went to sleepaway camp kind of at my school. They did like a summer program. So I was there for summers and for school.
And Chase, I was impressed when we were talking the other day, you were telling me a little bit about how you started to build that friend network. And that's something that you kind of kept going as you've been at these different programs to help you with that feeling of being away from family. I don't know if you want to say anything else about that.
Yeah, that definitely helped me, like knowing, because like I always call my mom or dad every day, but it's like my family rule. We have to like call each other every day just to say hi. It doesn't have to be like a full-on conversation, but it's definitely like nice, like being able to call family, but if you didn't have family, like you like being like upset or just having like a bad day, just going to like friends and having like that community was just nice to just be around, because it's like you made them become like family in ways. So when I came here, it's exactly how I felt. Again, me kind of like going back to high school with that community and like people that are like you and have the same like, I don't want to say issues, but same like problems that you have. It's like we all kind of get each other.
Yeah. And actually, you know what, Chase, I was just talking to a prospective student on the phone today, and that was the exact thing he said that he was looking for. And he's in a boarding school right now too. And he said, you know, I really want to be in a place where people understand me and understand what it's like. And I told him that a lot of times I heard our students, like you just said, say that, you know, coming to a post-secondary program like Chapel Haven really felt like they kind of found their people and they felt really comfortable with the friends that they were making there.
And Chase, I'm seeing on the screen that some of your goals are to get a job, manage your own money, and explore retail or graphic design. Is that right?
Yes.
So that's a passion for you.
Yes. I mostly want to do more of the graphic design art than retail, because I've been doing art since I was like, well, technically since I was 5, but I actually kind of started doing it more when I was like more in like middle school. But yeah, art has been part of my whole life, so it's kind of who I am. So,
and one of the things about Chapel Haven is we're very individualized. So we would look at each student. So we know that Kimber has a real interest in pageants and performance, and Chase is interested in graphic design. And our goal is to lead all of our teaching and learning to help that adult achieve that goal.
Thanks, Chase.
Yeah, that's great.
And then last but not least,
and Mr. Cheney. So Cheney is in his second year in our program and comes from Tacoma Park, Maryland. And Cheney, tell us a little bit about.
Spelled TAKOMA.
Oh, okay, we will fix that.
The Tacoma you're thinking of is in Washington State.
Oh, that's totally different, huh?
That is an interesting little tidbit.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about what you were doing before Chapel Haven and what prompted you to come to Chapel Haven.
So like Chase said, I also had gone to summer camps, which honestly is only a benefit.
And
Being
how is
at
it,
the
how do you
camp,
see it as a benefit? Can you say a little bit
because
about
you have
that?
experience of being away from your family.
Mm-hmm.
And then
So-
at my sorry,
Go ahead.
at my old school, even though it technically was a community, because it was a Rudolf Steiner based program, I got to learn about like weavery and then like animal husbandry.
Mm-hmm. And so what was your next step after your previous school? What were you looking for?
I was definitely looking for a more kind of urban, kind of basically Chapel Haven,
Mm-hmm.
more
Mhm.
urban and more independent living related.
So tell us about you live in an apartment and what is your day-to-day like?
Since I'm in my second year, I now also work in PAVE.
Okay, so you're in our PAVE program, and which location are you at in PAVE?
I'm at Whalen Engineering.
So you go up to
And-
Whalen Engineering to work, and what are you doing up there?
I'm like helping putting together certain emergency like sirens together.
So Whalen,
Siren,
mhm. Just for our guests, Whalen is a company in Chester, Connecticut that is a leader in providing emergency lighting to firefighting, police, aviation. And they host our adults coming up there and working right side by side with all of their own workers and learning how to be in a work setting. Okay, so you're going to PAVE, and what else is your day-to-day like? How have things changed from year 1 to year 2 for you? You're probably doing a lot more independently, right?
yeah, I do have a roommate, which is
Mhm,
the noise you're hearing in the background.
mhm,
I would say the main thing that would be more beneficial for me
mhm.
would be to have a good place to put my computer that would be in my room, and there's more something I myself would need to work on.
Mhm. Okay.
That way I wouldn't have to worry about my roommate.
So learning to
But-
manage a shared space, which
Yeah.
is what we all do
Exactly.
in the beginning. Yeah. Mhm. And to be in an apartment with a roommate and learning the give and take of that is important.
And the main difference I would say between my previous school and this school is the food was provided by old school, whereas here I had to buy my food.
Mhm.
You're buying your own food. Yeah. We don't have a dining hall.
And making it. Yeah.
Yeah. Excellent. Okay.
Thank you,
So
Cheney.
there was a question from one of the parents about PAVE. So we have a year-long workplace internship experience, and we have 3 different sites. One is Yale New Haven Hospital, one is Whalen, and the other is the JCC, the Jewish Community Center of Greater New Haven. And the PAVE staff who are with Chapel Haven work with each student to figure out which work setting is the best experience. And then the students go to those work settings and get a chance to work for a full year in a very professional setting. And along the way, they also attend all our vocational readiness classes. And a lot of skills get folded into that year-long PAVE experience.
And Catherine, are we all caught up on our chat questions, or was there anything else that we needed to address before we segue to our next section?
Quick look here.
Okay. So thanks so much, guys, for sharing about your experiences before Chapel Haven. You know, the thing I like about what each one of you represent is kind of a different path that led you to your post-secondary option where you are now. And actually, Kimber, I remember, because I was still teaching whenever you came to us, that your school district helped you to come to Chapel Haven as part of your transition programming. And so that's actually what I'm going to kind of segue into here, is talking about how to work with your, we call it in Connecticut, PPT, your planning and placement team, but basically working with the team that helps your student to have an IEP. And that often, or should, include transition programming, starting right around middle school. So I just wanted to make sure, Catherine, there was nothing else we needed to chat about before I jump in.
Well, there was a question about whether we offer scholarships, and we do offer scholarships. We have a needs-based program, and to date, we've given out 200,000 in scholarships. So we have a very good program. And then do we have, are we state approved? So we are approved through the State Department of Developmental Services, and we're also an approved private special education high school. And so depending on where an adult is in their age and their situation, those are some possible funding sources.
Yeah, in both Connecticut and Massachusetts, that we're an approved school. So yeah, so I'm going to jump into kind of talking a little bit about that. So this is just, and I will put a little asterisk by the things I'm going to be sharing on a lot of these screens do come from the Connecticut Department of Education. And I know we have families joining us probably from New York, New Jersey, maybe Pennsylvania, the surrounding areas. Your state Department of Education should have very similar, it may not be identical, but very similar, because a lot of this is mandated by IDEA, which was federal legislation. And basically, you know, it says that students who have IEPs and have disabilities have the right to include transition programming in their education. And one of the reasons that that's so important is, you know, in planning for what comes after high school, transition planning is like creating the roadmap, right? So if you don't know where you're going, you don't know how to plan for that. And so it's really important to help the young adult, the student at the time, start thinking about that, even if that changes a little bit from year to year, because this does typically start kind of young. In middle school, we start having these initial conversations. But it's important to have those conversations, have the student be a part of it, and then to be creating goals and objectives that are supporting their progress towards where they want to get to, right? So like I think about Google Maps, which I love because I'm always terrified of getting lost in places. And, you know, if I put into Google Maps that I just want to go to New Haven, Connecticut, that's going to give me a really broad area, you know, where I could end up. I mean, there's lots of different parts of towns, right? But if I say I want to go to Chapel Haven in Westville, it's going to zero in on the path that's going to get me there. And so transition planning is much the same way. The more that you can create some really specific post-secondary goals and objectives, the better that you can create those smaller goals and objectives that are like those little baby steps that will get you there. So I know it's a big process. It can feel really daunting. So I did want to just include some potential resources that might be a support for you whenever you're working with your IEP teams to plan for these next steps. You can see some of these listed here. Again, nonprofit organizations, I listed the ones that I was aware of in Connecticut, but I feel pretty confident that other states do have similar versions of these. A lot of times these organizations are really great in just helping you to understand what your rights are, understanding what the process can look like. And in some cases, like Favor in Connecticut, they'll actually send an educational advocate to attend IEP meetings with you, which can be really nice, you know, especially if it's a new process for you. The State Department of Education website, super helpful. It does have, you know, all the legalese there as well. Your school transition coordinators. I know that there's a lot of, I'm thinking in New York, like Westchester, their ARC has really great transition people as well. And then you hope that you're going to be able to navigate the process without having to involve attorneys, but certainly there are special education attorneys that can be really helpful resources. There's a great organization that we've done some collaborating with called SELF, Special Education Legal Fund, that's out there that serves families in New York and Connecticut as well, who maybe need some help, you know, figuring out what that looks like. So they're another great resource. So this is an example of the core transition skills. And I'm not going to read each one of these to you, but I do want to point out that, again, these are the kinds of things that you want to have in mind really each year as you're planning for the students' eventual transition. And again, this is starting pretty early, around age 14 is what Connecticut says by law that you have to start having these conversations by. These are important to keep in mind as you later start creating these post-secondary goal and objective statements. And I'm going to show you some examples of what some of those look like here in a minute. But eventually, those are going to drive your goals and objectives on your actual IEP. And then eventually, those are going to drive the potential transition program as well. So that's the thing I always tell families is it really does come back to the IEP. If you don't have an IEP that supports needs for transition planning, kind of hard to make the argument that the school district, should consider funding a program like that or funding a placement. It's not just about academics. As you read through this list, you'll see that for some students, it might be appropriate to include independent living skills, vocational skills. Communication is huge. There's one of these, well, exactly, A says, explain his or her disability, including individual strengths, needs, preferences, and interests. So that's an important one to consider because your student should be taking part in their IEP meetings as well and should be learning to articulate, their needs and advocate for their accommodations. And especially if your young adult is going to be heading towards college of some type, that's a really important skill to develop now, because once they're in college and they're an adult, professors are not going to communicate with mom and dad anymore. We rarely, even as a program that supports students in college, sometimes they won't even speak with us, even when the student provides permission. So developing the ability to articulate what you need is super important. So these are some examples of post-secondary goal outcome statements. Again, these are what will eventually drive the IEP goals and objectives. And when I was speaking with our director of special education the other day, who oversees our IEP place students, she was telling me that when she worked in the school districts as a special education director, she always loved asking students each year, okay, what do you want to do after high school? What do you want to be? What is your career interest? And she was making the comment, that often that changes drastically from middle school to, sophomore year to senior year, but she always enjoyed having those conversations. So it's going to change, right? So as the admissions person, whenever I'm reviewing a student's IEP, I always look really carefully at these statements. And I'm sad whenever I look at ones from multiple years in a row where the statement is the exactly same kind of general generic statement over and over again, because I think, oh man, like they're not really digging into this and, not really creating individualized outcomes, which is really what we want. So the ones that have an asterisk by them here, those are really intended to be very beginning kind of general statements that might be developed for a student who's not quite sure yet, but they shouldn't stay that way the whole time. So underneath there, you can see some examples of ones that are more individualized and more specific to what the student is wanting to achieve in the outcome. So just a few last points, and if there's any questions that have come in, I'm happy to try to field those. With school districts, the Board of Education, it's mandated a free and appropriate special education, right? So that doesn't always mean that we always get the Cadillac of services, right? It means we get what's appropriate. And oftentimes, the school district is going to want to look at the least restrictive setting because, again, that's something that's mandated as part of the special education legislation. So other important areas that the school districts will often be looking at is it a state-approved school? So Catherine was mentioning earlier that we are an approved school in Connecticut and Massachusetts. So that means that our curriculum has been reviewed, that we have ways of measuring student progress. And oftentimes they're going to want to consider a program that's in state as well. So how do you get them to consider options that might fall outside of one of those boundaries? Again, it's going to come back to the IEP, to what the student needs to be able to achieve those goals. Also, just a note that there's been some recent changes in the last couple of years. In Connecticut, it used to be the year of the student's 21st birthday. There was kind of a question mark about when the potential transition programming would end. And they were actually found to not be in compliance with that, as some other states were as well. So now it is on the student's 22nd birthday that they will age out. So if a school district is going to provide transition programming and provide that through the student's 22nd birthday, that also means that the diploma will be held until that time as well. A lot of times the school districts will, allow the student to kind of walk across the stage with their graduating class and kind of have that experience, but they don't actually get that diploma until they've completed their transition programming.
So we did have a question from Ellen, and she's asking if this is an ATP program. And I guess I'm racking my brains, but I'm not sure what an ATP program is. Ellen, did you want to ask that question so we can understand it?
It's an adult transition program, which it
Oh,
is. That's just what we
okay.
call it in Massachusetts.
Okay, yes,
Sorry.
yes. Well, then we definitely are.
Yes, I got that after.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, so we start at 18 and up. So that would be students who might still be on their IEP for transition programming, or it could be students that have, finished up that and are now 22, 23, looking for next steps. So that was a lot of information, some of which was slightly boring. I kind of find it interesting because, like Catherine said, I'm a former special education teacher, so I can nerd out on that stuff for a little bit, but I hope that gave you some helpful points to consider whenever you're working with your team. You really want it to be a good relationship, so you do want to start having these conversations sooner rather than later.
Good.
All right, so now
So
Catherine's going to bring it back.
We're going to get back into tips and ideas for how to get ready after high school. And of course, as we do that, we're telling you more and more about Chapel Haven and what we teach. So at Chapel Haven, we spend a lot of time on life skills. And I'm going to go ahead and call on some of our student panelists. So I think I will go to Miss Amazing, Kimber, and ask, and you'll have to unmute, Kimber. Tell us some of the things that you learned and reached around life skills and apartment living.
I learned to clean. I learned how to do my laundry, how to cook, how to maintain an apartment.
How about money?
Yeah. Oh, and that too. Yeah, and how to budget. I didn't know how to do that before.
So for a while there, we would give people $400 a month to budget. And then we found out that life is more expensive than that. So we gave everybody a raise and they went to $500 a month. But Kimber, what is that money? What are you budgeting for when you get that money? I know you don't get it now, but in the REACH program.
You would budget for toiletries, like if you needed like a toothbrush or like toothpaste or shampoo, or just like necessities, Friday dinner and rec trips.
And also your groceries, right?
Oh yeah, and groceries.
Yeah. So one of the things about our program is everybody starts out right in an apartment setting. So not in a dorm with a dining hall, but right in the apartments with support and oversight from staff. So they are learning all of these skills. And these are things that can be started in the high school years or even earlier, making your own breakfast or lunch. You can take your son or daughter with you when you grocery shop and give them their own list to locate some items just to get used to navigating, the grocery store, and then learning to handle an apartment. And some of those kinds of things come into play at a program like Summit Camp because your son or daughter are away and they are learning.
And Catherine, can I just put a plug here? These are my two favorite things to kind of talk with families about as they're getting ready is try really hard to take that parent hat off for just a little bit and start thinking about what life is going to look like when mom and dad aren't there. Because a lot of times I have conversations with prospective families and I'll say, okay, so do they get themselves up in the morning? Well, they could get themselves up in the morning, but I go in and I wake them up. And even a friend of mine was recently telling me a story about her mom used to go in and like scratch her back for a few minutes before it was time for her to wake up. And then she would get up. And obviously, you know, at the next step after high school, there's not moms and dads to give you that nice little back scratch wake up. So definitely, you know, start putting those little pieces into place now, because that just makes the transition so much smoother and already gives the students some confidence, because there's plenty of new stuff that they're going to learn. So we want them to have a solid footing with these like beginning things you can do at home now.
And I've even talked to families who, you know, have let their son or daughter in junior year, senior year of high school plan the next family vacation, even, you know, like start researching flights and where they're going to go. And just taking a little bit of leadership is very empowering. Some other things that we teach are mobility and how to manage free time, how to get around safely, and of course, budgeting. And so now I'm going to go to Cheney. And Cheney, looking at this slide, what are some things you think you've learned or mastered at Chapel Haven?
Definitely banking and budgeting.
So tell us about that.
With banking and budgeting, it's been like, I need to spend this amount on food. These are the social recs. This is how much the social rec fee will cost.
Have you ever gone over budget?
No, but I've been like, I've often said like, this is about how much I should spend, like, or I should spend from X in this range.
So you're learning.
Yeah.
Excellent. Yeah.
I would say throughout life, you're learning stuff.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. The other thing that we're very big on is social communication. And so we have full-time speech language pathologists in all of our programs, the REACH and the ASAP program. And just learning to navigate the world socially and to feel social confidence in different settings is a big part of what we teach. And Chase, would you want to address this at all? Have you noticed anything in this area for yourself with the ASAP program?
I don't think. I did work on budgeting a little bit. My old program, but what?
I was going to say, Chase, how about things that you've been working on with Sarah since you've been in the ASAP program? Is there anything that sticks out for you there?
Not here. Well, not like the moment here, but I've worked with it in the past with other people.
Yeah.
And just to note, the student who is in the bottom photo, who's making a gesture there, is a Summit camper. So he came to us from Summit.
Yeah. And just circling back to the IEP conversation that we were having earlier too, your school's speech language pathologist is probably all over, you know, these social communication concepts, and can give you some strategies for the student to be working on in the home, in the community setting, you know, to help with starting to build some perspective taking and some of those expected versus unexpected behaviors. So the book that we have listed there is a great read for families, you know, to kind of give you a beginning introduction to that, if this is all kind of a new piece for you too.
And then we do focus quite a bit on getting ready for work, and that does loop back to that social communication piece, because a lot of what we teach and work on is the different settings in life, and what is work like, and what is it like to be in a work setting? How do you communicate, and how do you take a break, and how do you get your tasks done? So of course, for students that are still in high school or getting ready to get into a post-secondary program, give them a chance to do some volunteering and, you know, have opportunities where they have to be at a place at a set time, and there are some expectations, and just giving them a chance to spread their wings and also explore what they might be interested in. So we have some resources on the screen for that to help them figure out what they like to do, because everybody is
Yeah.
more successful when they're doing something that they really like to do. And that young lady on the bottom of the screen there, Allison, she works at the Barnes and Noble at Yale. She's been in our program for quite a while, and she recently got married. So we have, she's our 4th married couple at Chapel Haven, and we're about to have our 5th. So it's possible that you also can find love in the post-secondary world. And there is a good question. Does chapel suggest a religious connotation? And no, it does not, but we get that question a lot. We were founded on Chapel Street in New Haven. So that's where that name came from. And then helping our adults learn how to manage time and manage planning and their calendar and all of those things, which we know are really critical to be successful in the college setting. And a lot of our students in Chapel Haven, especially in the ASAP program, do want to do college, usually pretty slowly. And we do an exploring college class in the beginning over at Southern Connecticut State University, which you can see in the bottom of your screen there. And it's literally right around the corner from us. But learning how college is going to be different from high school. And that is something that people can start working on even before your son or daughter leaves high school, just to understand that, as Christy mentioned, college is a whole different ball of wax, and professors don't really have to communicate with parents anymore. So helping our adults learn to advocate for themselves and to be ready to do that in the college setting is really important.
Yeah. And this is probably, telling you something you already know, but understanding that difference between modifications and accommodations. If we're modifying what we're learning how to do, that's a lot different than modifying how we learn how to do it. And so that's an important piece to consider when we're thinking about college content, academics and things like that.
We had a question from Wendy about whether people can start Chapel Haven by taking an online class. And the answer is yes. When we hit the pandemic, Chapel Haven had never really ventured into online teaching, but we launched a whole online series of classes and programs, and it was quite successful. So we still do offer some online programming. So if you go to chapelhaven.org and then to Chapel Haven Online, you'll see what the offerings are. And it can be a really nice way to just dip your foot in the water, meet some other students and teachers, and see if you think it might be for you.
And one thing that can be especially great for our online piece is our online rec program. So we have a really full virtual rec options for weeknight evenings and throughout the weekends. And as Catherine said, that can be a nice way to start making some peer connections, kind of get familiar with some of the Chapel Haven staff, and then, maybe eventually transition into in-person things, but also just a nice way to put another social outlet in there. We're working on our communication skills and all of that is part of it as well. So I know that we're getting close on our time here. I'm just going to do a quick rundown on all the different kinds of programs that you might want to think about considering after high school, and just wanted to give you some resources. Again, I know that can be a daunting process to think about, where do I even start, with trying to find what these next steps might look like. So there's some resources here. We often work with educational consultants, who can really get to know your young adult and can make recommendations for programs based on their particular learning profile and their needs. There's tons of new programs that are coming up all the time. Places like Think College, especially have connections to college-based programs. Use your transition team, at your local school. Use the staff at Summit. They know the programs that other families have often been to and can give you some potential starting points. And if your student is having a transition assessment done as part of their transition planning, which often happens, especially as they, get into those high school years, a lot of times the evaluators will have some recommendations that they can make, not only for what programming should look like, but can also maybe make some specific program recommendations too. So we've been talking a lot about tonight, our residential transition programs, but literally there's everything from day programs where your adult might be engaged in meaningful social opportunities or potentially volunteer work. Those are kind of core components of our community life program at Chapel Haven. Some day programs might skew a little more towards the social side or the vocational side. So I think if you can find one that strikes that nice balance in the middle, that's great. Every state has vocational rehab. It might look a little bit different, but that's usually a way to do some vocational assessments and some supported placements. And then in some places, even some ongoing job coaching as well. Your high school should have connections to helping you to get connected with the state agencies for that, because there often is state funding that can support that. There's, local community colleges, online classes. So if you're looking to kind of dip your toe in the college water without getting fully overwhelmed, that can be a nice way to do that, especially for community college, if they have a little bit smaller setting. There's programs like ours, like we've been talking about, which are really comprehensive, transition programs. There's a couple of other schools on there that you guys might be familiar with who are often being considered whenever families are looking at Chapel Haven. There's residential colleges that have peer supports. Our setup is a very holistic, like we're trying to equip you to be ready for full adult independent life. Some of these programs are geared more towards just that college experience and a supported college experience. And so often they are using some of the neurotypical peers in there to provide some of those social models throughout that. And then there's colleges for students with learning differences. So these are colleges that really understand how to tailor their teaching to support students who have different learning needs, but are still having that rigorous college academic content. And so Catherine's going to wrap us up now with just some things to think about. So when you're going out, you're checking out all these programs, these are some important things that you might want to keep in mind and some questions that you might want to ask.
Great. Okay. So, is this the slide or is there more?
This is one.
Okay.
There's two more.
Okay. Sorry. So some of the things that I think are really important when you're looking at a program is, number one, ask the program if they are accredited. Is there any kind of outside agency that is coming in on a routine basis to look at the program and assess whether they're up to speed on the most state-of-the-art teaching and learning? So in our case, Chapel Haven is accredited through CARF, and we have we're meeting international benchmarks for excellence. And we do the CARF accreditation process every 3 years. Another thing to ask is, will there be any reporting back to the family on how the student is doing? So does the program use any kind of benchmarks or measurements, and how do they communicate with the family? Chapel Haven each student has a team, and we meet with the family and their team. We hold meetings roughly every 6 months. And we're benchmarking toward independence and independent living. And we use a written report and a very detailed curriculum assessment tool, which families really love. So they feel like they get a very full picture of what's happening with their son or daughter. Also, what is the peer group? Do people make friends? And, I don't want this to sound like a walking ad for Chapel Haven, but it does end up that the friendships that develop at Chapel Haven are probably the richest part of the program. You think that's true, Kimber, or am I overreaching?
No, yeah, I agree.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
so we have 250 adults. So there's a lot of people, a lot of different walks of life. Some people are really outgoing, some are shy, some are really into, WWE, some are into Pokemon, some are into the arts, some are into movies and films. So there's a lot of opportunity to make friends. So that's another thing to find out. And you can always talk to the parents and students in those programs.
Yes, that's a great tip. Definitely ask to speak with a current family as you're exploring these programs, because the families can tell you a much better story, about their journey than the admissions people can, even though we tell a good story too. But, you know, it's better to hear it from somebody who's walking a path closer to yours, I think. And then one thing we didn't put on here too, but just also important to ask, especially if you're asking your school district to consider a placement, is if the program is a state approved program, because that'll be important as well.
Mhm. Yep. And then also, how is the program staffed?
Yes.
What does the staff turnover look like?
Yes.
Who will be working with my son or daughter, and for how long, and what can we expect? At Chapel Haven, everybody has usually at least a bachelor's degree. And we have people like Christy and I and our president and our senior team who have been at Chapel Haven for a long time. And that's always a good sign that people really like what they're doing and they're passionate. All right, so we've been talking. This is a good opportunity. If anyone has a question, I'm just going to dip back down into the chat here and see that there was a question about the PowerPoint. And I think that Thea is going to post this on YouTube, so you'll be able to review this. My daughter is a high school senior living at a residential program. Looks like at the Perkins School. This program sounds like a great next step. However, my daughter does not have autism or Asperger. Can you recommend any place else?
Yeah, so we also serve adults without autism or Asperger. Those are not our Asperger syndrome adult transition program kind of serves like diagnoses to that. But yeah, depending on your student's need, it diagnoses. Other programs might be the college internship program, the threshold program at Leslie University, Riverview School, Maplebrook, college internship program. These are all pretty comparable considerations to Chapel Haven as well.
And we do find that Think College has a pretty comprehensive list. So Think College is a great website to visit.
Yeah, absolutely.
But you guys take people that don't have Asperger's, like don't have, because it just sounds great. I mean, I love the community.
Yeah,
Aspect.
we have had, if I'm thinking of the right place, we've had people come from Perkins to Chapel Haven as well. So yeah.
It's not too far from me. We're only a couple hours.
Very nice. Well, I really want to thank our panelists and give them a little shout out. I thought they were awesome.
Yes.
And I also want to thank Christy, because I know she put a lot of work into getting this together. And I also want to thank Thea and Summit.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you so much for having us tonight. And our contact info was there. So if you heard something you wanted to explore further, please don't hesitate to reach out and we'd be happy to chat again.
Yes, absolutely. As we wrap up, I just want to really thank Chapel Haven for coming on. I know a lot of you guys are exploring post-secondary transition programs for your young adults. If you go to our YouTube channel, the Summit Series Presents, we've had some of those schools that Christy listed. Maplebrook, we've had Winston Preparatory, that's the high school. We've had Riverview. We actually did a travel program this summer where we went all through New England and visited a bunch of schools. So we visited the College and Living program. We visited CIP in the Berkshires. We actually visited a lot of places. So I am happy to talk to anybody about any of these programs.
That's awesome.
I'm not an educational consultant. I'm happy to put you in touch with one, but I'm also just happy to give you the knowledge that I know about them and other kids that go, or young adults that go to some of these programs. So this is so great, getting ready for life after high school. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us. Remember, we do these once a month, so we'll see you next month on the third Wednesday of the month, okay? If you guys have any questions, you all have my email. You have Summit Camp's contact information. You can get Christy and Catherine's information on the Chapel Haven website. So please let us know anything you need. Like I said, I'll try to have this recording posted on the Summit Series Presents YouTube channel by tomorrow, as long as my internet goes good. So thank you guys, everybody, for coming, and we really appreciate you. Contact us anytime if you ever need help. If you'd like to be added to that Facebook parent resource group, just email me or message me and I'll add you to it. Okay, thanks, guys.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye, everyone.
Have a good night. Thank you.
Night.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
This was great. I was just scrolling through the
We didn't
chat.
get to every single question, but we pretty much covered them. Thank you,
Yeah.
Cheney.
No, that's great. Bye, Cheney. I was
Thank
meant to
you
say
again.
like start early, and I totally forgot to say that. But well,
Yeah.
No worries. Christy, did I ask you before, where's your accent from? You have a Southern accent. It
I
sounds like.
do. Yeah, I'm a North Florida gal.
North Florida. Oh, I'm
Mhm.
from South Georgia. I'm from, well, Savannah, Georgia.
Yep, I'm basically 45 minutes south of the Georgia border, so right around a little bit west of Jacksonville.
Okay. Okay. Nice. Nice.
So
Very cool. I knew I recognized another Southerner when I hear it.
that's right.
Well, hey, ladies, thank you so much for coming
Thank
on. I
you.
really appreciate it. I
Yes.
think it was really helpful to a lot of our parents, and that's what we're all about, just sharing resources, getting the information out there. So thank you guys so much. And hey, anytime you need anything, now that we're connected, this is also another great
Yeah.
benefit of
And
doing these.
next
I get
time
to
you
meet so
do-
many people.
And next time you do your New England tour, definitely let us know. We'd love to have you
Yeah.
guys stop by.
That would be awesome.
Absolutely. Yes. Yes. I need to come up there and visit. And yes, I'd love to do another tour, a college tour, for a lot of these
Yeah.
youngsters. So it's great. All
All
right.
right.
Thank you,
Thanks.
Thea.
Thanks, ladies.
So
again.
nice to meet you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Good night. Bye-bye.